Media. In this rural area, a random Filipino knocking at your door is going to be a weird thing anyways.
Hi, my name is Ronnie Cruz. After almost 2 decades as a career network marketer, I realized that despite continual work on my personal and professional development, that I had hit a massive brick wall. So I took a deep and honest look at myself, top to bottom, hoping to find answers, and my search led me to one conclusion. The definitions I held of my business, of my world, of my life were the very things holding me back. If I wanted to change, if I wanted to grow beyond my current circumstances, I had to wipe the slate clean and redefine. This show is dedicated to helping you identify the belief systems, the mindsets, the very definitions that have held you back, and then help you break through those limitations to finally create the life you've been working so hard to achieve. Welcome to the Redefine Podcast.
All right, happy Tuesday and happy podcast day to you. Welcome to the show if you're brand new. And of course, if you're an existing listener, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I want to talk about allowing. This is, I guess, an expansion or a continuation of a conversation we had a few episodes back, where I talked about the divine feminine, the balance of yin and yang energies, you know, that strong energy versus that soft energy, that push or that allowing. Very important. And I think this is a topic, and these are principles that I'm going to really start to lean into more in the next handful of months because, well, number one, the universe is telling me to, right? Like so much of the content and the education that I'm consuming right now is talking about this, right? It's talking about the divine feminine. And I think it comes from the general imbalance, I think, that's happening in society. I mean, the entire species across the board, I think, is feeling very, very imbalanced and has felt imbalanced for quite a while. And that's because I think we've leaned more on the yang energy, the strong, the forceful, the push energy, and not we haven't relied enough on the allowing energy, the softer energy, the yin energy. Some people would call the divine feminine. And so I really want to lean into it, like I said, in the next handful of months, not only as my own exploration, but to share with you, I think, why I think it's important to have this balance. I mean, we clearly see that relying on one type of energy, the yang energy, the strong energy, has kind of tipped things into more chaos than not in all aspects of life. And so having these conversations, I think, will kind of bring us back into, I think it'll recenter society, recenter the species, so that we can, that we can have a more balanced existence. One example. And I bring this up because this just happened to me the other day, very recent, and I wanted to recount this story because this is a prime example of allowing. I, if you don't know, live in the middle of nowhere. I live in a log cabin that's very remote, and I'm pretty much just up here all the time when I'm home, right? Like, I don't leave the house. I don't have a job necessarily. I work, of course, but I work from home. So I'm basically just here on the mountain, and I go into town maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks to resupply and just to get out of the house, right? Change of scenery. And so the other day I had one such instance that I needed to go out to the grocery and get a few things, and then also take some time to myself and maybe sit by the river somewhere. There's lots of places that here in the closest city, Asheville, that are right along the river. You can get a drink and just sit outside and just relax, read a book, or do whatever the heck you want to do, right? And so that's what I had intended for this day. And one of the things, because it is such a trek, right? It's an hour one way for me to resupply. I like to, plan some things on the tail end of it as leisure because I'm already in town, and also I have to really be intentional. And I have to really set an itinerary for these days when I do go into town because it is quite a trek. It is quite a trek, and so going into this particular day. I had already set my intentions for what I wanted to do. Right, I kind of had a loose plan, and I approach every day that way. Right, the night before. I will always set my intentions on what I want to do, what I want to accomplish for the next day. And generally, I mean, I do that even up here if I don't leave the house, right? Because there's so much work I have to do around the mountain. And so I generally do that. Up here on the mountain, if, I'm able to kind of do all the things that I intended to do, great. But if it falls off the rails and if I can't get to everything, that's okay too. It's not that pressing. But again, because town trips are a little different because we're so far out, and it is quite a trek. I really have to, kind of stick to my guns and get as much of the itinerary done as I can. Right, really sticking to the itinerary. So that's what I did. That's what I did for this particular day. So I'm on my way to town, and I'm already about 20 minutes into the ride, and that's not really even close to town yet. Right, I'm still pretty remote at 20 minutes down the road. These windy mountain roads are crazy. So anyways, I get down to, I get past the windy mountain roads and get down to the base of the mountain 20 minutes into the ride, and I get to kind of this farmland area where close to where we live, and two dogs. There's two dogs walking on the road. Now, for those of you who know me, you know that I love dogs. I have four dogs myself. They're not with me right now, but yeah, you've heard the dogs making noise in the background in past episodes. I love dogs, and anytime there appears to be a dog in need, I will do what I can to pull over and help them, especially out here where it is very common for people to actually dump their dogs because we're so remote. It's really really unfortunate, but it's a unfortunate normal part of living out in these parts, and so anytime I see a dog, I'll pull over and try to help. 9 times out of 10, they'll run off, and it becomes really difficult to catch or follow, or they'll just run off into the woods, disappear, and I won't see them ever, again after that. Dogs are pretty resilient, thankfully, and the dogs out here, many of them are mountain dogs, and they already know how to fend for themselves. These two particular dogs on this day, however, when I pulled over, they came right up to me, and they weren't emaciated, they didn't look unhealthy, but they came right up to me, and when that happens, I automatically in my head assume that they need some kind of help or they want some kind of attention. Obviously, they wouldn't come to me if they didn't. And in fact, the smaller of the two, and these were not small dogs, but the smaller of the two jumped right into my truck, right? Jumped right into my truck, and so okay, now I'm stuck with these dogs. I wrestled the bigger dog into the back of my truck. I didn't really wrestle him; he wasn't resisting; he was just heavy. But I picked him up and put him in the truck as well. And so there's no way now at this point. I have two stray dogs in the back of my truck. There is no way I'm going grocery. There's no way I'm, going to even be able to get a drink and relax and have my leisure time today. So the whole day is shot. From here, the intention and the plan was, okay, I'll just take them to, and this was a Friday, late Friday afternoon. It was like 4:30, 4:15. I will take them to the closest shelter, which is not close, and I'll drop them off, and maybe I'll be able to do the rest of my errands, right? The rest of maybe I'll be able to pick up where I left off in my itinerary. I get to this shelter, which is in a different part of the county, and it's almost 5 o'clock by this point. They're closed. They close at 2 p.m. So I'm like, great. Now what? Now what? I'm stuck with these two dogs. I can't take them home because I don't have any food, and they've been out in the wild. They're dirty. They're covered in ticks. I don't want them in the house, but I also, yeah, I mean, I can't keep them outside or they'll just run off again. So, I'm stuck with this dilemma with these two dogs. And one of the suggestions from one of the volunteers at the shelter that was still there, she said, well, try driving around the local area and see if anybody recognizes them. And so that's what I do. And it's like it feels really futile, and I'm just driving all over the place, stopping at random people's houses who have never seen me, because we don't see each other up here. We're not like we're not technically neighbors, right? We're so far from each other, and like in this rural area, a random Filipino knocking at your door is going to be a weird thing anyway. So I knocked on a few doors, and nobody had seen these dogs before. I get to the area where I actually picked them up, where I found them on the side of the road, and I saw a gentleman and his daughter. They were walking their own dog, which is that's also rare in these parts, but they just happened to be walking their own dog. And so I pulled over, I stopped the car and I asked, hey, do you guys recognize these dogs? And immediately the gentleman was like, yeah, I recognize those. They're just local dogs. They're our neighbors' dogs that just kind of roam around. And up here, that's normal too. So he said, yeah, just go up to our street, pull in, drop them off, and they'll know how to get back. And that was it. That was totally my day. That had comprised my entire day. And this was like already 2.5, 3 hours in. We're almost close to like 7 o'clock, and so it defeated the purpose of going all the way back into town, because I was only 20 minutes away from my house. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, well, it was just, yeah, it just took my day. Thankfully, the dogs were okay. One of the things up here is that we're in a county where there are no leash laws, and people just let their dogs roam around the mountain, and it's totally fine. Unfortunately, some of these people don't put collars or any kind of IDs on their dogs, and it makes it difficult. But yeah, yeah, that took my entire day. One of the silver linings is I met the gentleman that helped me identify these dogs, which is really cool. He didn't, we ended up really kind of connecting, and we exchanged info, and I made a new friend. Basically, I made a new friend, which is it's rare up in these parts, because again, we don't see each other. We don't see each other up here. So my point of this, telling this 10-minute story is, yeah, no matter how much you want to, or no matter how much you think you're going to create a certain outcome, right? Yeah, and that's that yang energy, right? It's that structure, it's that regimen. It's like, I'm going to make this happen. Well, sometimes the universe has different plans. It has different plans, and the part of the yin that really, for me, I had to invoke and kind of lean into for this particular instance, is that throughout this entire episode of all of this going on, and me driving all over Kingdom Come to figure out what to do with these dogs, I was very, very frustrated that I wasn't going to be able to get to the itinerary that I had set out to do that day. And I just felt really just on edge, and I was just at my wits end, until of course I met the gentleman that helped me, but even then the day was shot. And so driving around, I had to remind myself, especially after the dogs had gotten back to where they were going, which is exactly where I picked them up, which really drives me crazy thinking about. But I have to really continue to remind myself to, okay, just, yeah, it's just how it is, right? Right? You can't change it, right? Because if I continue stewing about not having been able to do what I needed to do, I'm just making myself more miserable. So might as well just allow that the things that I had wanted to do with my day didn't happen, because the universe had wanted something else for my day. Number one, it was just to drive around with two dogs and drop them off. Now I know those dogs, and anytime I go by that area, if I see them, it's all good. Number two, I met a new individual who I think will be a good friend because he's a musician. He's actually also Asian, which is rare up here. Is rare up here in the mountains in rural North Carolina. And then three, it was, I think, again, the universe reminding me that there's certain things that I can't control. And actually, there are a lot of things that I can't control. As much as I plan and as much strategy as I put into anything, and as much, as much structure that I put into anything, at any given moment, it can go in a completely different direction that I had not intended or I had not seen. And I have to allow that. And if I don't allow that, I'm just going to be continually at odds with the here and now, continually at odds in the moment. And that is really a bad place to be if you're trying to manifest, if you're trying to create, if you're trying to use the law of attraction, right? If you're trying to create an outcome, but you're always at odds in the moment with what's around you, then it's not a creative energy, right? It's actually a repelling energy. So you see how this whole yin and yang is very important. Yes, of course, have structure, and I'll talk more about setting goals in a future episode. Have the structure and have the plan, but also be willing to be flexible, and know that that plan can go a completely different direction than you had intended, and then really accepting and allowing what is happening to happen, right? And not to be at odds with it, because again, that's going to create a repelling energy to whatever it is that you're trying to create. Of course, in this particular situation, not that big a deal, right? Like, I could easily just schedule, and I did schedule what I wanted to do for another day. And, it wasn't that huge of a loss. But when you talk about like bigger things, like in business or, in your marketing or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish in your goals, in your list of goals, it can be really really difficult to remember this principle of allowing, right? I can't really pinpoint, but I know this happened plenty of times in my career where things just didn't go the way you wanted to go. Actually, right now I can just pinpoint a big one. My business has seen a dramatic decline in the last year and a half to 2 years. Now, I didn't really, it's not like I wanted or planned for that to happen, right? But I have to accept it. I have to allow it to happen, and really see beyond the frustration and the disappointment, and just being at odds with it. The allowing allows the allow sorry the allowing allows the allowing and the acceptance, and leaning into the yin energy of the what's it called, of any challenges or adversities that you might be facing, allows you to see the lessons, right? It allows you to see where you can improve. It allows you to see so much more clearly than you would if you were at odds with it, because of leaning too far and too strongly on the yang energy, or the masculine energy, right? So really really important, really really important. There's the balance of the yin and yang, and these energies. We can't just rely on one or the other. We have to have that balance of both. I think, again, we tend to, because of how society has been, how society has been, period, over the last handful of millennia, and being very kind of male energy dominated. We have to recenter ourselves and allow for that yin and that divine feminine energy to come back in, because it gives us so much more perspective, and in that allowing, we become much more effective creators, and therefore we can accomplish and manifest our goals that with that much more ease and that much more quickly. So I know this was a kind of a long drawn out story. I didn't intend for it to be, but hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to be really leaning into this conversation and these principles of yin and yang, and the divine feminine, because I mean, I'm having all kinds kinds of personal insights. And so to synthesize that for you, hopefully I can help you bring a little bit more balance into your own life. So that's going to do it for today. Hopefully you have a great rest of your week. We're going to have a fresh new one, of course, on Thursday. So until then, be well, be safe. We'll see you in the next episode.